we're recording. Okay, so let the meeting begin. Go for it, Phyllis. Thank you.
Hey, it's okay if I go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming and being with us tonight. And thank you, Bruce, too. I understood you just drove back from California to be with us tonight.
Yeah, that was the only reason. Yeah.
So I'm going to start us off with just a very short meditation from Sounds of the Eternal, authored by John Philip Newell. And he has authored several books, but one is Sacred Soul, Sacred Earth. And this is actually for this evening. Prayers of thanksgiving and intercession. Like light dappling through leaves of a tree and wind stirring its branches, like bird songs surrounding and sounding from the heights of an orchard, the scent of blossoms after rainfall. So you dapple and sound in the human soul. So you stir into motion all that lives. Let your graces of healing flow this night. For our soul is wounded. There is brokenness in our life. Let your graces of healing flow, dear God. For those whom we love are in need this night, and there are agonies in this life of this world. There are agonies in this life of this world. O my soul, and those whom we love are in pain. So with that, Pam and Jen, feel free to know that I welcome your intervention at any time. So Pam, it looks to me like you are the first item on our agenda with a report back from mission team.
Okay, I'm just going to try to just whip through a few highlights here. Through Community Life, both Tammy and Heidi are asking us to submit any pictures that we have of any activities that we do. And they're going to put those on the bulletin board. Through CE, and Larry, I don't mean to steal any of your thunder, but there was a suggestion to include the 50 families in the Learning Center in our church activities. So whenever we have things like walks or e-waste or activities that might include them, we should do a special reach out to the Learning Center to try to include them and invite them to come to our services.
That's great. You should do that through Ken Hoagland.
Okay, that's right. He's the chair of the Learning Center.
He's the chair of the board of directors of the Learning Center. And then what you could do is send it directly to him and then copy Melissa, the new director of the Learning Center.
Okay.
She took over for Noni. So I think that would be the best thing, but send it to Ken since he's the board of directors. And then I'm sure Ken won't have any problem with it. And since Melissa will be copied, then she can send her flyers out to all of her parents. What she does is she makes flyers and she sticks them in the backpack. So
Okay,
of the kudos, yeah.
But just that concept that, I mean, the first Plymouth Learning Center board is really the liaison between the church and the school. And so I think we could do some better communicating.
No, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Just a follow up on our request to try to use less paper and maybe more screens during worship services. Apparently they've been talking about it, but there's a need for a lot of funds and expertise to do that. And so Joel has put out feelers for volunteers to help. And maybe Beth, do you have something to add to that?
Well, on Sunday, it was significantly less. It was just one folded page, front and back on both sides. They've already reduced it. And they used the screen quite a bit. Ben had all the lyrics to the songs up on the screen. Joel probably did it, not Ben. It was Maker Faith. But I was pleasantly surprised. It was really nice.
Good. So
Yeah,
that was for Maker Faith. It'll be interesting to see whether it carries over to the other services as well.
Right.
But they're aware of it. And actually, Bob on Treba said that he's had experience with some of this in other jobs that he's had and will try to introduce this gradually. So people are aware of it, and sounds like work is in progress to go that way. Worship team just wants us to know that there'll be less flowers used and no poinsettia for Christmas this year, just because last year they went to waste. We had them and then nobody took them to deliver them to others. And so they ended up going to a compost instead of being shared with others. And let's see, the Leadership Task Force is recommending that council appoint a group to create and update an organizational chart of all of our committees and CAMs and ministries. The term CAM is not well understood by our members and new visitors, and so we might want to rethink what that means and what, whether that is a term that still needs to be used. So that was a recommendation through the Leadership Task Force.
Pam, there was one already produced with all that on it. We've reviewed it at council, and I thought we had it at the leadership retreat in the book. We reviewed it. There was a notebook at leadership retreat this year, and we reviewed it. I could send it out to all of you if you want me to do that.
I guess I have that in my leadership notebook, but I don't know. I'm not sure then why they're recommending it. Does that need to be
It's
looked at again?
It was just updated like 2 months ago.
Okay, okay. Well, let me get back to Heidi and see where that's coming from. Also suggested from Leadership Task Force is that when we make our financial pledge, it would be wonderful if we could also make a pledge of our time, of our, our time and our talents during the stewardship drive, so that we can know where people's strengths and interests are as far as supporting our various small groups, ministries, and committees. And then let's see, outreach is asking for ideas on what we would like outreach to spend their funds on. And it was suggested that maybe a mission trip, we might be ready for a mission trip, and a class on parenting with love and logic might also be a possibility. So let's see. I think that's it for mission team.
Okay.
Oh, Pam, could I just say, I don't know when it was Bonnie Mucklow who invited me, for years, 10 years. I went to the Dominican Republic with Partners in Mission, which was a group in the church. And we did humanitarian work there. And so Bonnie recently asked me to come and share. She went on that trip one year too. We went for 3 weeks every year. Some of you have been in the church a long time know this. And she wanted to kind of rekindle that relationship in the Dominican Republic. It was a really great relationship. And we worked all over the country over those 10 years. It was very meaningful for me, but I think other members of the church, some of them are gone. I was probably the youngest person that went. It was I don't know, I was in my 30s probably. And I had 2 very young children, but it was a really cool experience. And then the United Church of Christ divided up the world and gave First Plymouth, do y'all remember this? Some of you, Venezuela. And so the Rocky Mountain Conference took on that mission trip, but then we couldn't go anymore. Stuart and Kat led that for many years. I never went with them. But all of those trips were quite interesting. But maybe there's a mission trip. I mean, that's feedback for mission team, Pam, or whoever keeps going. Maybe there's something in the United States we could do. And I'm not sure what that is.
Well, with all the hurricane damage in Florida, maybe, or some of the states that are being hit hard by immigrants and people crossing the border. No, there's certainly lots of opportunities hopefully we can connect with.
I wasn't around in the days when they did a Bay St. Louis trip down to Mississippi, I think it is, because of the hurricane, whatever, and
Camille,
anyway, there
that
was
was
a
a
lot
long
of.
time ago, Bruce.
It was after Katrina.
That was a
Yeah.
long time ago. Oh, was it Katrina? Oh, that was only 2005. Okay.
It was after Katrina.
People talk about that all the time and all the work that was done. But it's sort of like a habitat build, you know, but we're all getting so old. I don't know if that's gonna work. We need young blood. That's what we need.
Okay, well, we'll share our ideas with outreach and hopefully that will continue to be discussed. Following mission team, I just want to share with you that our dear friend Nancy Rosenberg will be moving to Florida within a week or so. And she presented to Jan and me at coffee that we had a while ago, a gift, a donation that she made to an organization called the Park People. And she did this in the name of our Creation Justice Ministry. So the Park People is a private 501c nonprofit organization working with communities to plant trees and improve parks for a healthy and resilient future. And they've planted over 60,000 trees in Denver in the last few years. So very thoughtful of her to do that in our name.
Wow.
Okay, is that everything to this point, Pam?
That I'm done. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is e-waste update and report from Bruce.
Right. I checked at noon today. As of noon today, we had not received the bill yet from MedTech, and that's what's really important because then we'll know, you know, if we made any money or not. But in summary, what we collected was, and this is a pretty rough estimate from my memory, but around $6,700, which is down quite a bit from past years. Hard to say why. You know, we barely filled up one truck, I guess, and it was pretty slow at times. In fact, it was so slow in the afternoon that Warren Bennett and I went and trimmed some trees for facilities. But anyway, a good time was had by all. I mean, there was a lot of good activity and got a lot of good fellowship. The big thing was that we did the what do you call it, the credit card deal, and we had 42 people use credit cards, and we collected over $3,000 that way.
Yeah, that was Bruce. That was really a good thing. Because normally we always have people that say, "Well, I have to come back." You know,
Yeah.
they have to go to an ATM, get the money, and then come back. And then this way, they had a credit card, they could just use it. So that was really good.
Yeah, so but I think some of that was cannibalized though from people who could have written a check perhaps. But anyway, it was good, and we should continue it. It cost us a couple of percent or so. I think the number was $84 in fees to, what's that group called? I forgot. Anyway, the middleman.
Square,
It was good. It was good. I like the fall event time. I think. Does anybody have any other suggestions for improvements? Or we're always looking for people to think about this taking over. I've moved all of the gear to the church because I can't store it in my home anymore. So all the banners and all the signs and all of that is stored at the church, and it wouldn't be hard at all to train somebody to. The main thing is recruiting people, as you all know. And
Did we do any less or more or about the same advertising external to the church than we had done in the past?
I would say about the same. The main thing is the signs we put out.
Yeah.
I used to go around physically to 9 churches in the neighborhood.
My.
But now I've done that by email. And I know the various key people in these various churches. And I don't know if Amy posted it anywhere on our website. She used to send out some e-blasts to various newspapers and things like that. I don't really know whether she did that or not this year. So.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
I'll send out an e-blast the minute I'm guessing, I'm gonna guess, $4,000 it'll cost us. So
And that, yeah.
we might have made $2,700. And for comparison, last year, the last 2 years, I should have mentioned this. In 2020, we collected $13,700. So that's $7,000 more. And we netted $5,900 in profit. Last year, it was down to $10,000 and we netted $5,600. So, and we collected $6,700 this year. But I think we were more efficient. We had big stuff and heavy stuff, and we did a great job. And Jen provided a scale so we could weigh the heavy stuff and, really sock it to them, you might say. So I think we had less leakage. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anything else, Bruce?
No, I think that's
Okay.
a question.
Thank you, not just for the report, but all of the labor, commitment, intention, and effort that you make it look tireless.
Well, I would say a couple of things. We had several new people came, and that was certainly good to see. So
Yes.
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
Cindy was there, her partner. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll move forward into old business. And the next item is,
Before we move on, Phyllis, it looks like Hetty might have a question.
oh, sure, sorry.
It's fine, Phyllis, and actually Bruce answered most of it by way of just explaining the profit margin. So mine, green behind the ears as it relates to this sort of e-waste recycling event that you folks host. But so you folks charge more. So you charge more per item than what the actual recycling vendor receives. And so,
Oh, yeah, right.
so you're charging above and beyond what the agreed upon, or not the agreed upon, but what the price.
It doesn't work.
Sorry,
quite that way.
okay.
I don't want to dwell on this a lot, but they charge us by the pound and they sort it into 3 or 4 categories. We charge by the item.
Right.
And there's a rough correlation, but it's not direct. And a lot of it's feel good stuff like vacuum cleaners. We put a price on that. Well, and people want to get rid of an old vacuum cleaner and will happily take it. And that's almost pure profit because the whole category of stuff they collect that they don't charge us for. So,
I see. So it works both ways. So there's a whole category of miscellaneous things that the recycling vendors don't charge for,
right,
that you guys charge per item for. And then everything else they charge per pound, and you guys in turn charge per item. I mean, I was there, right, for, couple.
Way back, I had advice from one of their people that, well, if you want to make them, you should probably be charging this for the CRTs because they have their own charges to the public too at their shop.
Right.
Okay. I was going to say where.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, I talked with the guy who's, I guess, he think he's the one who leads that. And so, Hetty, I can give you an example. We look at the CRTs, the cathode ray tube, the old TVs, and we measure them diagonally, and then we just charge. And so the very largest, if it's over this amount, doesn't matter how big it is, we charge $100. Well, there were some TVs where the guy said, that's going to cost you more than $100 because it was so heavy. But that's just the way it works. It's just easier for us than to try to get it exactly.
Oh,
Right.
that's interesting to know. We might need to review that next year because I haven't been raising the prices.
Yeah, I think this was the biggest one that they had, though. The biggest one that we got in, it was like a 64-inch or something. I mean, it was gigantic. And, but yeah, he said, yeah, that's gonna cost you more than $100.
Yeah. Okay, well, good to know.
Yeah.
I'll remember that for next year.
Okay, so this e-waste recycling event, this annual e-waste recycling event is twofold then. It's, community service, right? And for a cause, but also it acts as kind of a limited fundraiser for the church,
A limited what?
a limited fundraiser for the church.
Oh, very much so, and it goes directly into the Creation Justice Fund, the special fund.
Oh, okay, right. So it's not in the general.
What we use for our composting and various projects we have, as well as then a sub part of it goes to the Green Energy Fund. So,
Okay, all right, thank you, Bruce. I don't want to take up any more time, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions about this before we move on? Okay, then, old business. The next item is ready to work with Deb and Jan and Steve. So if one of you or several of you want to speak to that, please.
I can speak to it. The four of us went to a site visit with and met the executive director, Paul Egan, I believe his name is, for Ready to Work last Thursday. We had it was a wonderful experience. I felt it was a really positive experience, and I was very impressed by the organization itself and by the staff that we met. Some of us are going to try to make the community meeting this Thursday at 3:30 so that we can just get a sense of they call the clients interns and trainees. But I think we are coming back to them with a proposal for a certain number of recycling containers and compost program. And I mean, I think this is a project that will be ongoing for the next at least 6 months. And I don't think we need to go into all the details here. If people have questions, if you'd like to join us, it would be great. Pam is doing the research. Deb and Steve and I think the research on the bins, compost bins, and the 3 bin sets, 2 bin sets. But she's not committing to being part of the sort of education site visit once a month. We figure maybe we'd be there. And so if anybody else is interested in participating in this way, we'd be happy to include others. But I think we'll be giving our proposal back, with some costs, and we'll go ahead and buy the bins, and we will come up with an education program, and we will just do it. Any questions? I really thank Steve for bringing this to our attention last January, and we made it into a project we wanted to pursue, and it's getting off the ground this month. So
Getting off the ground are beautiful words, aren't they? Anything else under old business from any of the participants tonight before we move on? Okay, we have, fortunately, enthusiastically, we have several new items and under new business. So there was there is a need for a volunteer to read story to Sunday school kids October 30th for the celebration and beginning event of the youth art contest for environment, for climate and hope.
So that,
Yes.
I'm on it.
Oh, okay. Thank
well,
you.
I got
there's actually a lot more to it than that. there's downloading the art forms, and Alex is out of town for 10 days, so I'm not sure really how, I mean, she asked me to sign up, and so I've been getting the material, and I have not had a chance to actually download the art forms. It's a nationwide UCC contest, I guess is a fine word, but project, and children and youth can submit their cards with messages of climate hope for change. And three, as I understand them, 3 of them will be selected, and the UCC will print boxes of cards. And I don't know that they'll have this in time for the holidays. I don't think these are holiday cards. I think these are more sort of evergreen kind of cards. What Pam and I, when we initially went back and forth around this, was regardless, we really hope that Alex can encourage all these kids with this project. And the deadline information is a little weird, but I think I think the deadline is November 30th. It changed. I'm getting different information from some emails, but so that actually gives them more than just October 30th if they want to bring it home and really refine the message, refine the picture. I've also forwarded to Eric in case there's any individual, I know he will not want to do this with youth group, and that's fine, but in case there are any individual youth who might be interested, that like art, that care about the environment, that it might kind of connect with, at least make it available to the kids. What Pam and I discussed is taking our own kids' art and making our own First Plymouth sets of cards, of children's cards that you could buy for a little bit more than our cost of printing them. And but we haven't had a chance to research those costs. We're not coming to you with a proposal with numbers attached to it, but more as a concept, as a way of supporting and reinforcing and contributing to the sort of youth programs at First Plymouth. So is there any discussion? Yes or no? Hattie?
Yeah. So Jan, yeah, I mean, if you and Pam are taking the lead on this, and you've already received materials and you feel more comfortable with doing the presentation October 30th, cool and groovy. My daughter used to be a budding multimedia artist, and I think with me looking to re-enter the field of environmental policy, however that's going to look, whatever that looks like, I think I'm just like, oh yeah. But
sure, no,
but
that's
really, if you're far more organized and you already have A, B, C, and D, and whatever, or if you'd like me to just do the spiel, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I think we need to know more what Alex wants from us. She kind of came up with, come and read some stories to the kids. And I don't think it's just one volunteer. I think it would, as many, 3 or 4 or 5 of us, particularly if we have a children's book with a positive message, or know enough about the Bible, can't quite claim that, to know, to be able to raise up, a short biblical passage that is both about love of the earth and hope.
Well,
so anyhow,
yeah.
October 30th is only 2 Sundays away, or one
Right.
Sunday away. And I have not identified a story yet. Pam says she has some books that might be, or stories that might be appropriate. Maybe you do, Hetty. Do you have a short children's story? I mean, those kids are, like 4 to 9 or 10 maybe, that I think she'd be working with.
Yeah, well, there is in Hawaii, Keiki there know the story of Maui well, but that is not I'm trying to think, it is a book, but I'm trying to think if it is longer rather than
Yeah.
shorter. It would be helpful to know when Alex says a story, like,
Yeah, I think what she's looking for are some fairly short stories that they're scene setters so that she can get working on the art project.
okay.
But like I
So-
said, she's out of town and I don't know for sure. But
That's
I,
okay.
you know, we're talking about fairly simple
Right,
stories
right.
rather than
So-
books.
Right. So, I mean, there are a lot of environmentally themed children's books or
Mhm.
reads or stories. You can go online and Google it, whatever. I, on my own, I can see how long that story Maui is. I love Maui.
Mhm.
And it's not about the Rocky Mountains, of course, it's about the ocean. But
Sure.
yeah, I think that maybe the kids, depending on how many storytellers there are, I would just suggest that you have at least one kind of marine kind of resource themed story about the ocean.
Mhm.
And certainly one about, maybe something that's much closer to home, right? Like rivers and the watershed and, the Rocky Mountains, et cetera. I'm happy to read a story, whatever. I love the idea of maybe
Uh-huh.
what the outcome of the art contest is, that First Plymouth's own youth, you would like take their best artwork or take everybody's artwork and morph it into like generic kind of greeting cards. That sounds fun,
Uh-huh.
And I do want to know the age though, for those youth like Eric, like you said, individually, if Eric could make an announcement, anybody that thinks they want to participate, cool and groovy, he won't make it a group activity. But is it
Mhm.
up to 18? Jan, is it up to 18?
It doesn't say an
Okay.
age in the materials that I have received, but yeah, I'm assuming it's school age children is what they're talking about. And children and youth is what the things say. So I'll dig down deeper into that. Hetty, I will include you. Anybody else interested in attending Sunday school on the 30th with with some of us, and even if you're not interested in attending Sunday school, if you have a book that you believe has a message that we should share or at least consider sharing, why don't you email me and then I will be in touch with people.
Jan, I volunteered with Alex and I've started a reading list from different libraries. They're wonderful picture books.
Great. Lee, you're part of the team.
So this is during Sunday school, not during the very brief time with.
That is a great question, Hattie. Alex is out of town and she's not communicating directly
That's
right
okay.
now. But that is a great question. I have an email in progress for her.
Okay. Just CC us then, for those of us that want
Yeah.
to be happy to contribute.
Okay. Anyone else?
You've heard.
Pam?
Yeah, I'll be there. I can
Okay,
join.
great.
I
Okay.
have a couple of books that I used to
Great.
read to second graders. They're a little bit long, but I could shorten them. They've got a
Okay.
good point about construction and pollution and things coming in and displacing the animals. But if there's other shorter versions,
Great.
I'm sure Lee is an expert at that.
Great. I will communicate. Alex should be back, I think, the beginning after this weekend. So I'm going to send her an email and hope to get an answer.
I
Great.
think I'll go ahead and just very briefly look up any marine themed
Okay.
books, children's books that might be appropriate, and
Yeah, just email them to me.
yeah,
okay?
I won't acquire them. I'll just email them the titles, whatever, or if I can find a, like a
A
link,
synopsis, yeah.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for all of that. Next item is about, there seemed to be in our last meeting and time together, some interest in vegan, vegetarian focus and possibility if we might want to take it to perhaps a real experiential situation for a shared meal. And so I'm bringing this up this evening just to see where as a group we are about that focus. And if so, if someone might be interested in spearheading it, of course, with some help. So
Phyllis, I missed the beginning. What was that about?
vegan and vegetarian interest in perhaps creating a shared meal. The topic was discussed the last time we were together, perhaps the time before. So we have it on the agenda tonight just to see where our group is in regard to that. If the interest is significant, and if so, if there might be someone who might spearhead that, of course, with help of a team.
Cindy, was that something that you had mentioned, or was that mine?
Yeah, that was something I mentioned, and actually Susan, my wife, has suggested that it'd be great for us to either have a potluck or have maybe people in this group just cook some vegetarian things and possibly have a speaker, because we've attended a lot of vegan gatherings here in the state of Colorado. And the lady, they actually have a Colorado Veg Fest every year, or they have had, which is something pretty cool. It's sometime in the summer, June or July, I can't remember when. Susan says right now that it's not a good time to talk to the big poobah of the Veg Fest because she just got diagnosed with some breast cancer and is starting chemo. But we're thinking maybe either spring, possibly winter, late winter or early spring would be a good time to possibly have the church host its own little veg fest, if you will. I'm not, just what we've normally done when they have vegetarian gatherings, they call them vegetarian or vegan. People bring either vegan or vegetarian food, they label it, and then we have a guest speaker. And Susan has several guest speakers in mind, but she hasn't pursued it yet. So that's just something we're offering to this group, if anybody else wants to jump in or whatever.
So,
Oh, I think it's a great idea. And I think that you are really onto something by saying late spring or so, because I think that the church is going to be, people in the congregation are going to be super busy over the next 4 months, 4 or 5 months about stuff. And even though it'd be fun to have some sort of great diversion from all of that, we've got the holidays and things like that. But I think you're absolutely right. And maybe it's something we aim for. We always do try to do some sort of programming around Earth Day in April. And it might be a great Earth Day effort, which gives us plenty of time to, maybe in January, start asking about the calendar in April. When we have a clear idea of what's going on, asking, for time on the calendar, gives us time to sort of percolate whether, a Sunday afternoon, evening thing or Saturday or what it might look like. But I think it's wonderful. And I also, just the idea whether we prepare the food or whether we ask people to prepare, vegetarian dishes, that's one that we can think about too. Are we offering and serving, sort of, or expecting? It's just that kind of thing, people
like to come to a place that they don't have to prepare the food.
Exactly.
They'd much rather show up, for like the Saturday night was supposed to be wine and cheese, and it was wine and a smorgasbord. And a lot of wine.
Exactly.
So, and it was pretty nice. I mean, I don't drink wine, but the smorgasbord was a great dinner. So, and that's kind of a thing. I don't know if this group, it would be nice to challenge people to just go and find something vegan, because it's really not that hard. Oreo cookies are vegan. A lot of people don't know that, and hopefully that won't stop anybody from eating Oreo cookies. But You know, there's
That's
all kinds of
great.
vegan things, but maybe this group could volunteer to, you know, we could assign dishes of an appetizer, a
Uh-huh.
couple of main entrees and our main dishes and or dessert.
Yeah,
And just have us as the group find vegan things to cook.
I'm not,
and
So,
it'd be hilarious to have a table too of surprise vegan
yes,
food,
did
like
you know these
Oreo.
things are
Yeah,
vegan, right? Like the
that would be
Oreo
wonderful.
cookies.
Yeah.
Well, when we
Right.
went through, when Pam and I went through Just Faith Ministries Sacred Land class, Nancy Rosenberg, who taught that class from Just Faith Ministries, shared with us a list of foods that create the largest carbon footprint in their,
Mhm.
when they're
Ooh,
grown,
Great.
or so they are, I think I'll remember these correctly, beef. The top three are beef, coffee, and chocolate. I think it would be important to kind of, there's a much larger list than that. And
Yeah.
you can see what is the most, but if you were serving vegan,
Right.
you wouldn't have beef, but you could have coffee and chocolate. And maybe we'd like to avoid those kinds of foods too, since we're the Creation Justice Ministry.
Right.
And not just focus on vegan and vegetarian, but those foods that create more of a carbon footprint across the world.
You mean
So,
less? Oh, you mean
no
to
more.
make a point of what creates a bigger carbon
Yes.
footprint?
Yes,
Yeah.
and what creates the least. And that list is in our stuff that Pam and I both attended that class. It was an 8-week class. It was a really great
Ooh,
class.
wow, sounds
And
great.
Nancy, I think, will teach it again when she gets resituated in Florida. Just a little aside, there was a lot of interesting material in that class about climate change videos that could correspond, Cindy, and there might be people who could be a guest speaker from Together Colorado or some of the organizations that we've partnered with already and heard from that we know could help us with, what all that means, but legislation in Colorado about that. And if we could plan it before the legislative session ends, that might help us also support legislation. Just thoughts.
When
Thank you,
does the
Beth.
legislation session end?
Usually the second week of May.
Okay,
It starts in January, ends the second week of May.
so April looks like a good time.
Lee?
I'm wondering if it wouldn't make sense to do it as an adult forum and see how it goes before we open it up to the whole church.
No. I don't know what's an adult forum, sorry.
That's what my hand is up for.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'll start out, Hetty, if you want to lower your hand, you have to click in the same place where you raised it.
I know, I have another question. I did.
Oh, okay. We didn't see you lower it, so that's why I say that. But in any
Right.
event, okay, so I think that to do this, well, first of all, I agree that we need to wait a while because this is going to take a lot of planning. And if we can time it right, okay, there's a lot of things that go in, but if we can time it right, we can make this, we could do it on a Saturday night, again, or Saturday evening. We could do that, and it could be a joint Creation Justice Ministry and Adult Forum. And I like Beth's suggestion a whole lot. We could even probably put on for each food item, if we prepared it, if we knew exactly what we were getting, we could put so much carbon burden, right? For like, and so people should, Creation Justice Ministry people should eat the stuff with the lowest carbon burden. Unfortunately, that's probably the stuff that tastes the worst, right? The really good stuff tastes good.
No.
you don't know.
So anyway, I'm just joking, but in any event, so if we waited a while and we did it as a joint, now one thing, Cindy, everyone's invited to the adult forum. I mean, you wouldn't, if you do something after service, you could invite the whole church, but believe me, you're not going to get more than 40 or 50 people.
Right.
Oh, not even that.
We got
No.
60 people to the adult forum last Saturday, but that's very unusual. So
Yeah. Well, and this we would want people to bring their families and their kids, in my That's how I
Yes.
conceive it anyhow. So, yeah, I think it should be an evening, but I think a joint, adult forum, creation justice in April. And it gives us ample time to brainstorm and plan it.
Right,
I'm
and
liking
you can
this.
work together, so the more people you get, the better it will be. And I think this is another thing where we might be able to, Pam, actually invite the Learning Center parents and their kids too, right? This would be another thing, so we could invite them also. So another way to connect the Learning Center.
Okay, so if the 9 of us are cooking for 60 people, we're gonna have to like have a big freezer.
Larry,
ahead, Hattie,
isn't there
go
an
ahead.
adult forum already on climate justice that Bob Redwine is doing this fall?
Yes, this fall, he is. Yes, he's doing it. I think it's the last adult forum in December, yes. I can't remember the exact date now, but you're right. Rob Redwine is doing it's just called, his title now is just called Climate Change, but yes.
He did it at camp this summer and it was fabulous.
Right.
Chip Cole recommended to adult or to the education ministry that he come to the church and do it again. So it's already scheduled.
Yeah.
Yes, it's scheduled. Yes, right. Yes. Yeah.
Cindy, you can add Phyllis to your people of interest and willing to help with that too. We became pretty much vegetarian because of our granddaughters, which at the time was tough for me because my grandparents were Indiana farmers and were very successful farmers who raised cattle. So anyway, I'm completely switched, but I think together with the carbon footprint and all of that, and there's tremendous number of very appealing ideas here. So yeah, I think it could be really, really fun. So are we, we're not done with this. This is a yet to be decided and planned, I think. But anyway, count me into.
I just want to throw out a couple of things. If I feel like if you have this event that you want to open it up to like the early learning center parents and their little ones, my gut instinct is that it really would be more appropriate to have it after a Sunday service as opposed to a Saturday evening. I just feel like even if you have it after winter, spring or mid-spring where it's warmer and we've gone back on our clocks, right? And it doesn't get dark at 4:45 or 5 p.m. I'm thinking that if you want a larger body of people to attend, as opposed to perhaps a smaller group of folk that maybe half of which you're already preaching to the choir, that you may want to reconsider and pick a Sunday in April, if that's what you're looking at. That would be, as we say in Hawaii, akamai for everyone, and reach your broader audience. The second thing is there any funding for food so that this small group of 10 or 12 or 15 people in the creative justice ministry would not feel overwhelmed with trying to, cook appropriate dishes, whatever that is that we might individually appeal to us, there would be some sort of money available to go and buy some either made items, or if you really want to get, the best way to get to quote a man is through their stomach. Well, the best way to convert or never mind converting. That's the best way to like get a hold of people's attention that are really conditioned into believing that, hey, you can't eat well unless you incorporate, red meat and poultry and seafood into your diet. There's just no good tasting food. Well, so fire up the grill and serve them hamburgers, except they're Beyond Beef or Impossible Meat Burgers, right? Like, meat.
Yeah, these are all, Hetty, these are all great ideas. And I
Okay,
think we
I'm
should,
done.
well, I think we should convene, really convene this working group in January, where we're actually talking about dates and specifics and practicalities. I just think that I think everybody's really excited about it.
I agree. I think it's, yes, Pam?
I also would just like to put just an idea in people's heads that we normally have the month of April for Share the Plate. Creation Justice normally does. And it would be wonderful to tie in an organization that is for food sustainability or
Oh, great idea.
Something food related that could be, maybe it's our speaker who's associated with that, or maybe it's an adult forum that comes on the Sunday after the Saturday meal. Anyway, I just hope that maybe we might tie that in.
Yeah, great idea.
It's a
for
great idea.
Share the
'cause
plate.
We might integrate food scarcity and food security,
Right.
which is an increasing challenge as we think beyond our own borders. So, yeah, well, obviously this is a hot topic. Okay, so thank you for that, everyone. And next items for new business. Beth has a couple things that she would like to share with us. And then I do as well, but I'm going to put forth Beth first. So Beth first, please go ahead.
The first thing I wanted to talk about, which Phyllis is normally part of our standard agenda, is the Net Zero Task Force, which is a subset of the Creation Justice Ministry. And I want Larry to report on that because he's the chair of the Net Zero Task Force. Your turn, Larry.
Okay, well, all I have to say on that is that, and you don't even know this, Beth, we're going to have a meeting before Thanksgiving, if I can arrange it, for where the Net Zero Task Force goes from here. Okay, so we need to lay out and just make sure that the Net Zero Task Force is all on the same page about our next steps, whatever that might be. We do owe a contractor, really, a final yes or no on whether or not we want them to do a project for us that we asked for. And we haven't sort of decided. I mean, we kicked the can down the road long enough, and so now we have a dead stop. We have to decide. So that's what we're going to do at the next meeting. But really, right now we're in limbo right now. For those of you who are new, we had this net zero project that was part of Creation Justice Ministry as a task force from a small group of people plus one or two from facilities on seeing if we could get the church, how close could we get the church, First Plymouth Congregational Church, our building, to a net zero carbon footprint. And because of where we are right now, people tend to not want to do this anymore, seeing as how we may not be in the same building a year or two from now. So in any event, that's what we have to do. So we're in a waiting game right now, and we'll come back with a proposal sometime in January, Jan and Pam and everyone else, on whether or not we should just fold that task force and just say, well, it was a good try while we had it, or we continue. So that's what our next meeting will do, is whether we stop net zero task force or continue.
Larry, I would just like to say that I hope that Net Zero Task Force is enthusiastic and willing to think of its role as not simply limited to the 3501 South Colorado Boulevard. And
Oh, no, definitely not. We're not.
and that
Most people don't want to talk about it anymore. Bruce and I think, are the only two that really think that the current contract would actually help us look forward to, no matter where we went. And a lot of people don't, for some reason, don't believe that. And so, anyway, that's where we are. We have to decide as a group, net zero task force, before we come back to Creation Justice Ministry and say, well, here is our thoughts,
our
as
recommend,
consensus, our recommendation, and do you agree with that?
okay.
Gosh, I would add into what Larry said that I hope as a ministry at First Plymouth, regardless of what we end up doing, staying or going, that we all agree that any new building we would have to agree was going to adopt becoming green, whether it's ahead of time or afterwards.
Oh,
We
yeah.
certainly couldn't see building a new structure without solar and geothermal and
Mhm.
the other things. I mean, I can't imagine doing that. I think that would be certainly wrong of us based on, and I would hope the ministry would speak up about that.
Oh,
as
Beth,
we
I think that's
forward.
exactly what I'm doing. I think that exactly what I'm saying is
Oh, I
that
wasn't speaking to you.
is
Jan.
that they're chartered or charged now that it is a different landscape than it was almost 2 years ago when the charge was first given, that I think all of us feel that the charge is not simply about this building, it's about
Right.
whatever our future moves are. So yeah, I don't think that's a question, a debatable question within the ministry.
No, but I think
we
it
all
is
support that.
within the congregation. And so I think it's questionable in the congregation. And so I'm just making a point that I think it's our job as the ministry who supported this approach and would continue to support it in the event we knew we were staying at First Plymouth, that we support it vocally moving forward.
Mhm.
Without it, as part of a motion or whatever happens in the near future. I don't have any answers to that. And that is not why I asked Larry to report. I'm quite frankly tired of talking about it at net zero. I think that the task force, I just want the ministry to know, came to some agreements between us verbally, face to face. And when it came time to really decide if we were going to support those or not everyone could. So I find that hard. And you all know that who've already heard this from me. I find that very troubling that we can't sit in a room and decide on things and then verbalize that we're in support of them, not the ministry, the net zero task force moving forward. And that's all I would say in response to what you brought up, Jan. But this wasn't about responding to what you said. It's just about the Bethards' personal perspective on what I hope all of us can step up and do.
Okay. Oh,
I'll
thank
just
you.
add one thing, and I totally agree
Bruce?
with.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
I totally, oh, am I muted?
You're
Yeah.
on. You're on. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I agree with certainly everything that's being said, particularly with Jan and Pam, about the future. But I don't know that when you said, I think you might have got me mixed up with Chip a little bit there, Larry, when you said the only two that are supporting this, the ambient study. I don't want to go forward with that unless it's got major surgery to it, because it's totally focused on this building. I think they're useful. I think that we need to refocus what they do to off-site.
I agree. I agree with the refocusing. So that's why we have to have the meeting.
Right. And we need to plug in more to what's happening with the Faithful Futures group. We're sort of in a vacuum if we don't know
Yeah.
what they're coming up with.
We're not sure about that, no.
Okay, I think we've talked enough. Thanks.
The other thing I had, Phyllis, was something that I sent to Pam, which was on the United Church of Christ Climate Ambassador program.
Yes.
That was that was sent out in email newsletter form this week. Y'all can go into the UCC and sign up for all the climate information that comes from the national church on a regular basis, and you'll get emails about it. So there's a training on November 5th from, I think it's 11 to 3, that the United Church of Christ is hosting with about 5 guest speakers to become an ambassador of faith values in becoming a climate ambassador. I sent Pam an email, so I mean, someone could send it out, or I suppose I could send it out, but it came.
No, we'll send it out, and I'm actually going to have Amy put it in the
Cool.
in an e-blast too, so that there might be others out there who find it interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's really great stuff that comes across in those UCC emails. That's all I had. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other comments or questions of Beth about, or
I
Larry
have
or
my
Bruce?
hand raised. Yes, so
Sure,
just
yeah.
one, it's really directed to you, Phyllis. So in support of the net zero task force meeting that we're going to have, it would be good if we knew what the details, if you're prepared, or if you know what they are, of what the federal infrastructure bill has in it that includes supporting nonprofits like churches to add solar and geothermal and other green initiatives. If there's any kind, I mean, we don't pay taxes, so you can't get a tax incentive. So are there any incentives in the infrastructure bill to support the churches?
No, it sounded, Larry, I got that email and it sounded like grants. And it came, I don't know who sent it, but Chip also knows about it. And I believe that he's investigating it. He and I had a conversation about it. You know, could we get funding to do the net, you know, what we have already in this building with a grant? And, you know, would that be worth our while? And why would we do that? Because we'd leave a cleaner building and a cleaner and a less of a carbon footprint in something that we might, I'm not saying we would, leave behind.
And I don't have the background to really speak to it tonight. I can take some of that on. Bruce, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, these grants are out there and I'm excited to study them too, but why wouldn't we get the grant for a new building if that was where we were gonna go?
That's exactly what I was going to propose. I feel if we are truly open to all alternative choices, that a premier question, if I were pursuing, you know, the request for proposals, would be for whom does it serve, and for what does it serve, and to be sort of like a novelist for a moment. I've thought about the decisions that are in front of all of us about next steps. And I truly believe whatever we do together, to have the image of it being like Hemingway's movable feast needs to be what we can imagine. So therefore, I would be interested in, you know, in supporting the endeavor to apply for the grant, if it could indeed be futuristic enough to really imagine itself being applicable regardless of what and where we decide to be next.
Couldn't we do both?
Well,
I think that's what Phyllis means.
what I said would include, go ahead, yeah, it would include that, but
Yes,
not preclude any of the others.
right.
Cindy.
Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand yet on Zoom. So my question would be, for these hopeful grants, is the church going to be, you know, one and done, that you only get one in every 10 years? So that may be a big
That's a very good
thing to
question.
know of where we're going to go with what, you know, whether we do what we do with the church now or a new place. You know, I assume they're not, oh, you did something this year and now you sold it. Now you're going to need something the next year. No.
Yeah.
So I think
you're
that's a
right.
question. I don't know if the answer's out there, but that's something to think about.
Chip is trying to find out
point.
that information.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Cindy. Thank you.
Yeah, the criteria are essential. I have 3 really very short things to share with
Oh,
you.
Steve, just a minute.
I'm
Steve,
sorry.
Steve, was this about,
Yeah, oh, well, I'm following up on the same conversation. I just jumped. I already had been looking at this a little bit for my own personal use of this infrastructure bill, and 'cause I'd like to do something with my own home and things, which I haven't done, and I keep procrastinating on. So what I read in here, and I just went back to it, it says that there's the individual grants are capped at $200,000 per nonprofit or per entity. So my question would be to you all, and that if you have some contact with this Faithful Futures group, if you went to them and said, "Hey, we apply, if we applied for a grant, and by golly, we got the full maximum amount, $200,000, would it make any difference to you?"
Mhm.
And I would just go to them and ask them that question, because if $200,000, considering the amounts of money that the church has been talking about in these meetings, if $200,000 isn't going to make enough difference to them, especially for the upgrade,
Yeah,
then
It's not
there's
a
no
lot of-
point in going
yeah.
very far with it.
yeah,
So
thank you.
that was the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing I wanted to say is I agree with something that Beth had said, and you, Larry, is that I think this ministry, the Creation Justice Ministry, needs to get its fingers into this Faithful Futures thing. I mean, considering one of the proposals had to do with trying to stay here and get people excited about making this energy friendly building, or at least carbon neutral, and make that an attraction for growing church membership and all that. It doesn't feel like it's got a lot of traction. It seems like we need to get somebody in that Faithful Futures group that has this mentality, because like you both implied, this needs to be made clear to them that you just can't go buy a smaller building someplace that is not environmentally friendly, or doesn't fit our ministry. If you are going to move someplace, we need to have some impact in it. And what I'm getting from you, Larry and Bruce, is that you're not getting a lot of reception. When I hear Bruce talk, it just sounds about as depressing as some of the other people I've talked to about this whole thing. I know it would make me upset and depressed if I've been putting all these years of effort into getting our church, with a lot of support, becoming a Creation Justice Ministry and having that covenant passed by the whole church, and then sort of hear from a bunch of people in charge that yeah, that's real nice, we're not really interested. So that bothers me, this conversation tonight. So I just wanted to share that.
Maybe that's an
I
update.
think we need to push to get more involved.
Steve, maybe that's an update you haven't heard, but Net Zero Task Force went to council so somebody help me. I believe it was in May. It's been a long time ago. I can't believe it's October. Does that sound right, Larry? And I'm on council. So I sat, Chip made the proposal. He's on the Net Zero Task Force, Chip Cole. And we developed a paper that we presented to council asking for $16,500, which is what the ambient proposal that Larry is referring to, which does an evaluation of the church and what we need to get to solar and geothermal. And I'll tell you what has happened since May is significant about what's changed with solar. They're not necessarily adding solar panels anymore. They're adding solar roofs that have this GAF technology in them to create what mimics a solar panel. And we need a roof replacement if we were to stay in First Plymouth. And we probably have to do something with the roof even to sell the church. But it didn't get a lot of traction, Steve, just to answer your question at council. There's a $25,000, oh, help me, Jan, or somebody, bequest.
Special projects fund.
Yes, that was made to the church, which was initially earmarked for marketing. And council changed that it's open to any kind of request. We haven't made a formal request because council didn't want to give us $16,500 out of the 25,000, but they would give us some of it. Now, you know, some of you probably don't realize that Jan and Pam, were you on that call? I don't think you were, but there were a few of us from Net Zero with Jan on a call, maybe, Jan, do you think early June? And we just couldn't, you know, looking to the ministry to give us money for that proposal as well. The ministry doesn't have all of that money, and nor would they give us all of it to begin with. And we just haven't been able to raise the interest enough, I would say, this is again my impression, to get anywhere in the church that we could find that money right now to do that proposal. And that's the conversation Larry is talking about the Net Zero Task Force having. So
Right.
does
You're right,
that help with some background? So we've worked really, really hard on this. And it was an emotional meeting that we had in June. And, you know, we took a break for a while. The Net Zero traction at Faithful Futures, Bruce, to answer your question, lost some ground. Chip assures me he's still working on it. I did have a conversation with Chip a few weeks ago. So that's all that the information I have serving on council, or, you know, discussing this further at, you know, Net Zero or the ministry that I could share with you.
Thank you, Beth. One thing that I believe is going to happen during this next 3 or 4 month process with the facilitator, who will be speaking. In fact, I urge everybody to go to church in person, or at least participate by Zoom on Sunday and meet and hear the presentation. I'm not going to try to say her name because I don't have the piece of paper in front of me, but the consultant. I think that in a parallel track, I have heard that the Faithful Futures group is going to open up. It's going to have more members. They're going to reconstitute, and that, in my mind, is where we ought to be. And I am more than happy to get in touch with David Nestor. Well, yeah, he's still here. Get in touch with David Nestor, find out if that's true, when that process of adding individuals and how that would work, because you're absolutely right, all of you. We should have a measured voice in those conversations so that we are bringing our values, the church's values, into that conversation, whether we look to build something new or partner with others or find an old building that is, needs a lot of work, that maybe the $200,000 might help with, whatever. That you're right. You're all right. That should be a conversation that we are front and center on. And so you can put this in the minutes, Lee. Jan volunteers to contact Faithful Futures and find out what their process of adding voices to their team.
Well, that's really good news. Glad to hear that, Jan.
Yeah, me too.
I totally support the direction that this conversation is going, because I have felt for several weeks that a huge dynamic that needs to be addressed and is that underneath all of these realities, and sometimes that conflicts, overt and covert, but really truly is a clash of values. And for me, what you all, what this group, what I'm a part of with you is so clearly, there is absolutely no question. It is a dimension of faith. And anyway, I will stop. I think everything's probably been said, but I do feel there is an undercurrent of values contradiction that has not been faced. And I think it's past time. It certainly is due for this hot topic to be addressed.
And that is the reason the council has identified a consultant and facilitator is so that we may evaluate our mission and vision and restate it before we move forward.
Mhm.
And once we're able to restate it as a congregation, then it might be easier for us to determine what our next steps are.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need a facilitator, and at points,
Mhm.
frankly, folks, we also need a mediator. I have two things to share, and we have about 8 minutes left tonight. Before I do that, and then I'll close us off with a very short piece. But do any of the rest of you have any other item for new business that you would like to speak to now?
Phyllis, we just have a little housekeeping to take care of to see if we have someone
sure.
to take, just someone to take notes for the next meeting. Lee, I hope you're okay with doing the leading for next meeting with this new leadership model, if that's okay. And then we need to decide who would like to go to mission team. It's the first Tuesday of every month. And, you know, Jen and I have been trading off, but as part of, it's really very interesting to go to mission team and to see and hear from all the other leaders from the different CAMs and ministries. So that would involve probably an hour and a half of your first Tuesday, starting at 6:30, and then reporting back to Creation Justice at our November meeting.
But it would be someone who's already agreed to be in this loop of running our meeting and taking notes at our meeting, right?
Right. I mean, it might be
wouldn't have to
part of, you know, someone who is taking notes. Maybe that's part of their, or maybe it's the leader. I'm not sure. I wanted just to ask you how you think that should look. And I don't think it should necessarily be a third person.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, no. What do you
Steve.
think, Steve?
Okay, well, I personally think that with what's going on, especially over these next few months, and some of the importance of what's going on, I'm actually sort of uncomfortable with switching you and Jan out of the mission team meeting. You guys are well-known and respected. They'll listen to everything you have to say, and as we're trying to sort of state a case for Creation Justice and maybe some of the other ministries to be involved in this Faithful Futures thing. You know, when you're new in a group and you don't know them, you don't know how to approach it and get, I just would right now with everything that's going on, I really like to keep the same leadership we've had for a while in those mission team meetings. So if somebody else does go, just to listen in, I'd still like to see you guys there to make sure that we're heard. That's my thought.
Thank you for that input. Lee, what do you think?
You're muted.
I'm on a different subject.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll comment on Steve's point. Steve, I've actually been having the same feelings. I think that the shared leadership that we're trying within our group is really healthy and positive. And but I do agree that it makes some sense to have continuity at mission team, particularly at this time. So Pam and I have done a pretty good job of sharing that role. Sometimes back in the day when we weren't so busy, we'd both go sometimes. So
Yeah.
I hear you on that. And I think that that's a reasonable way to go. And certainly whoever is, would be Lee next month. If you would like to go to mission team, you're welcome. But if you are uncomfortable feeling like you are the designated speaker, I think that one of us should be there too.
I'm good with that.
I agree.
You know, I would normally volunteer to do this, but I think there's two things. One, I can't. I don't have any more bandwidth than I already have going on. And I am on council. And I'm not sure another council voice at mission team is the right thing. You know, I think I might carry more weight than, you know, people would say, well, why is she at mission team? So I have to be careful right now about what I pick and choose. I'd probably much rather be here and at mission team, I'm telling you, than at council. It's been a struggle for some.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure.
So
I can imagine.
I'm sorry I'm not volunteering. When we get to the first of the year, I could reconsider, but it's not something that I feel like I've bandwidth for right now.
Okay. All right, any takers for minutes for next time?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll put that out with the,
Is next time.
Hetty?
Can you help me out if in the next 2 months is, yeah, it's gonna be heavy for me, but so the person who takes minutes for the next meeting then runs the following meeting.
right, so you're committing for 2 months, minutes in November and leadership in December.
Right.
So if you're not ready for it, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
trying,
no.
we're
it's
trying
good.
this out. We don't want to pressure anybody. And so we'll put it out
Yeah.
with the minutes and see if somebody else who wasn't here tonight would be willing to jump in. And otherwise, you know, we'll do it
Yeah.
when we can.
Okay, well, it's, yeah, all right, I'll meditate on it and see how things go on my end and see if you have someone else
Okay.
steps up to the plate.
Thank
Happy.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for considering.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi.
Okay, yeah, back to you
Lee.
then.
Pam,
Lee.
and then should we,
Lee has something to say.
okay.
I just wanted to share a couple things I picked up at Together Colorado.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
right.
just listened to the business reports. I didn't do the earlier stuff, but there were a couple of things. I don't know how many members we have who are Denver residents, but they were suggesting that we make Waste No More flyers available, which is a ballot issue for Denver. And they have done a flyer that they suggested some churches might want to make available. They're working very hard. They went out canvassing with voters, and with two sort of objectives. One is to get people to know how to vote, and that's not to say how to vote on things, but how to actually vote. And they wanted to make people as a church group that there are moral issues here that we're dealing with when we vote. There's a piece of legislation, SB 22-138, that is to reduce greenhouse gas that I think we might want to pay attention to. And it's from Senator Hansen, who's trying to get other legislators involved, but it's got 5 different parts, which are complicated. And Together Colorado is trying to decide where the lobbyists are strongest so that they can coordinate with them. But basically it involves insurance companies, para, thermal energy equipment requirement, and a disclosure of a survey that there's grant money for. But there are 5 parts to it. They're calling it a smorgasbord, and they're trying to decide which parts they want to advocate for, which they think is going to depend on where the lobbyists are strongest. And there was one other thing. Oh, they were suggesting that a lot of churches are handing out pledge to votes cards to get people, which I sort of thought we don't need in our congregation, but it's something they're doing in their churches. Those were the big things, I think. And they're trying to put together resources on what people should be taking home to their congregations.
And I don't know if Pam's gonna bring this up. I would like to see this be.
That was pretty much it.
If it can be, because.
I thank you, Lee, for listening to that committee report and passing that on. I appreciate it.
But yes, I agree that it would be nice.
Okay.
Not to-
Yeah.
Pam, I just have one other thing here, and given that it is 8, I'm just going to postpone my things, which is fine with me. But if we could have just a quick discussion, first of all, about the date, and there have been some voices that would like us to reconsider possibly doing this during the day. So if you could sort of take the lead on that.
Oh. Well, we've met the third Tuesday at 6:30 for a long time now. We tried out some daytime meetings, which seemed to fit with most people until we had a few people who were working, and they asked for a change. Those people are not attending any longer, I think, unless I'm mistaken. So one proposal, I guess this comes from a couple of people who have a lot of meetings on the third week. And I know one other person, Sissy Nuenas, has another meeting on the third Tuesday. So she hasn't been able to attend for quite a while and is interested. So one proposal is to go back to maybe the third Tuesday at 1 o'clock, or maybe, Jen, are you suggesting not the third week, right?
I have 6 hours of Zoom meetings on Tuesday, on the third Tuesday of the month. So I'd like to have less.
Okay.
I don't know if people like 10 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 in the afternoon, or now that we wouldn't conflict with WISE on the second Tuesday of the month at 6:30.
That's council. No,
That's
council.
also CE though. CE is the second Tuesday.
Oh, is CE the second Tuesday also? Okay.
Jan, I would not attend during the day if we move it to the day. With the Afghan refugee project and the other work that I'm doing, I have a grant right now. So that's what my bandwidth problem is about. It's a long-term care related grant, and it's a 2-year grant. It just started in August. And so I just cannot attend
Okay.
a meeting during the day. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
It's not possible.
No, it's good to know. I mean, you've got a lot of evening meetings too, I know. So sometimes it's just.
Should we alternate? Is that a possible strategy?
That would be confusing.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it as it is for now. It's fine. We can look at some different ideas after the first of the year if we want to.
That would be better for me, Jan, if we wait. I might be able to see what my schedule ahead looks like, but I know between now and January, I can't do any more daytime meetings.
Okay. Hetty.
Oh, I was just wondering if, given all of the parameters of people's schedules and changes thereof, that they may or may not be able to anticipate going forward. Would a weekend meeting happen since it's just once a month? Would a Saturday, like 9 to 10 a.m. or 9 to 10:30 a.m. weekend meeting be kosher?
It wouldn't work for me.
Wouldn't work for me either.
Okay, I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, no, we're throwing out. Thank you.
It doesn't have to be a Tuesday. I mean, if we could all take a look at the church calendar, Thursdays and Wednesdays are a lot freer than Tuesdays. So maybe we might want to consider one of those. So let's table that for now. Take some time to maybe look at the calendar, and we can come up with a proposal for a change.
A couple of suggestions, sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay then. One last thing, I can put it in 30 seconds. There is a battery electric powered locomotive that are rolling in California on California tracks. It's been demoed by the Pacific Harbor Line and Progress Rail, which are owned by Caterpillar Company. It began using operating battery electricity in locomotives in the port of LA and Long Beach, California. And the head scientist reports that for 12,000 miles of travel, there were 22 tons of carbon not emitted into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as we struggle, and I do too, I just find little bits like this just lightens my spirit. So with that,
Okay.
I'm going to read a short paragraph. Bless this night, O God, and those whom we know and love. Bless us this night, O God, and those with whom we are not at peace. Bless us this night, O God, and every human family. Bless us with deep sleep. Bless us with dreams that will heal our soul. Bless us with the night's silent messages of eternity, that we may be set free by love. Bless us in the night, O God, that we may be set free to love. Amen.
And
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Phyllis, you did a
Thank you.
great job.
Yeah.
Thank you so
good,
much.
yeah.
Very nice, fellas.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Great ideas, great input, lots of energy, so appreciate it.
Happy
Good to
dreams.
see everyone.
You have one last thing, Steve? No,
He's just waving.
just waving.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All
Bye.
right,
Good night.
let's see, I need to stop the recording, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, stop the recording.